Hi, I'm Melissa from polkadotchair.com and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, I love to share quilting and sewing tutorials with you guys. And today I have a project for you that's a little bit different than some of the ones that I've shared in the past. If you've been a subscriber for a while, then you know that a couple months ago, I republished a video tutorial that I had filmed on Instagram stories onto my YouTube channel. And I had mentioned that there were two such tutorials that I wanted to post, and today is the second one. I have these tutorials saved on my Instagram highlight bubble. I'm at polka.chair on Instagram, and I have referred readers back to those for a few years now. I filmed them in 2020. But what I've noticed is that Instagram takes longer to load some of those older stories, especially back to 2020. So people would get halfway to 3/4 of the way through the tutorial and then they would realize they can't, like the rest of the stories wouldn't load. So I was getting a lot of emails about that. So what I'm doing pretty much is I'm just importing the tutorial in from Instagram story. So the thing that you'll notice is different is that we'll be in a square format versus the landscape format that YouTube usually is. But the square format's not too bad because it does allow me to add some extra tips and measurements on the side of the video. The tutorial, what we're making are my lined drawstring bags. They are these cute little bags. I actually made them years ago. This is a different one from the video. This is just one of the ones that I still have floating around the house. We've given most of them away as gifts, or my daughters have confiscated them for laundry bags. These little bags are reversible and fully lined, which is kind of one of the fun things about the bags. So the bag can be made, I think, in 6 different sizes. So this is one of the smaller sizes all the way up to like a one that's about the size of a half a yard of fabric. And that one I made for myself a few years ago, and it is my go-to laundry bag every time I travel. The directions and the measurements are on our site, polkadotchair.com. You can type drawstring bag into the search bar. Or I'll link it in the description. If you want a printable copy of the directions, we do have those on our site for sale. The directions are just too long to fit in what we have formatted as the print box on our blog. It just doesn't print very well. So the best way to handle that is with PDF. It's a very nominal fee to cover the cost of that, and I will link that as well. I think you guys will really love this. These make, like I said, they make great gifts, little toy bags. You do need to be careful. They have drawstrings in them, so I wouldn't do it for any really small children. Laundry bags, shoe bags for travel. I've found all different ways to use them, and they are also pre-cut friendly. So this one was actually made with some leftover squares from a 10-inch square pack. So let's go ahead and get sewing. Okay, before we got sewing, I thought I would kind of show you a little bit about the bag. The bag features a drawstring top so that you can just pull on it to close it. And it is fully lined. Sometimes when you pull on that, it takes a little while for the ribbon to loosen up when you start using it. The other thing that's really cool about it is completely reversible. So you can just go like this and turn it right side out or inside out, however you want to think about it, and pull on the strings, and you have a completely different bag. The other thing I wanted to talk about was fabric choices. So what you're going to need is you're going to need 5 fat quarters of fabric. A fat quarter of fabric is 1/4 yard of fabric by square feet, I guess, square inches. But instead of, normally a yard of fabric is 36 inches, divide that by 4, you get 9 inches. Normally a 1/4 yard of fabric would lead you a piece that's 9 inches by about 40 to 42 inches long. However, if you cut it in half this way to 8 inches, and then you cut it in half the other way, then you get a bigger piece of fabric. So you still have 1/4 yard of fabric total, but you have a more usable piece because it's wider. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So if you're wondering, like, why are you having us do this out of 1/4 yard of fabric, Melissa? I don't know if you guys are familiar, but if you quilt a lot or you shop at local quilt shops, they sell fat quarter packs of fabric. And so what it is it's a fun way to get a lot of different prints of fabric, cut up into pretty big usable size pieces, and it's just an easier way to package things. And this is a really common way to buy fabric. So when I write patterns, I try and write them what you consider to be fat quarter friendly, because then you can just buy this, take it apart, and do a whole bunch of different things with it. Okay, so we do need to talk about fabric direction before we get going. So this fabric does not have a direction, meaning it doesn't have an up or a down. It doesn't matter if it goes this way or this way on your finished project. So all of these up to this point are non-directional fabric. This is a directional fabric. So if I wanted to make my bag out of this, the problem is that the pattern calls for your piece to be 17 inches by 20 inches. Well, your 20 inches runs from here to here, and your 17 inches runs this way, which means when your bag is finished, when it looks like this, your pattern is going to be running sideways, which is not something that I'm guessing that you want. So here are a few other examples of fabric that runs, has directional, that if you made your bags out of this fabric, that you would end up with a sideways. When I mean sideways, I mean that the pattern runs this way across the bag. So what we're gonna do to fix that is, if you want to make your bag out of a directional fabric, kind of like this mermaid here, instead of cutting your piece to 17 inches wide by 20 inches long, you're just going to cut it to 17 inches by 17 inches. And I did make a note of that on the pattern printout. Your bag then will end up being a little bit shorter than if you made it out of a non-directional fabric. However, I think like the extra couple inches is not going to make any difference as far as like the usability of the bag. And also, you know, it's going to look better to have your fabric all running the right direction. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was that it doesn't matter for this top piece which direction your fabric runs, because it's 17 inches by 3 inches. So if you were to make this top piece out of this mermaid, you've got plenty of fabric to cut it 3 inches tall and it won't matter. But the 4 pieces that make up the front and the back and the inside and the outside of the bag, you do need to pay attention to the direction of your fabric. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and cut our fabric. It says on the pattern to cut it to 17 by 20 inches. Normally fat quarters are 18 inches. However, I've noticed that if something gets cut funny, you don't have like a full 18 inches in length. So I don't usually notice that I have fat quarters that I can use all 18 inches of it all the time. So in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and just assume that your fat quarter is short and just cut it to 17 inches because it's a lot easier. And you'll be a little more careful when you do that, because you won't be working in it around a camera. And then we're just going to flip it this way and cut it to 20 inches long. I'll do that and then I'll show you the next step. After you get all 4 of your pieces cut to 17 inches by 20 inches, what you need to do is you need to cut out a square out of the bottom corner of each of the pieces. So it's 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. I just so happen to have this little quilt ruler that is 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. So I'm going to use this just to make it easier. But if you don't have one of these, it's not a big deal. Just go ahead and use your ruler. And then I usually just come in with scissors and cut this out. And then you want to do that for all 4 of your pieces on both of the bottom corners. So I need you to do the same thing to this corner over here, and then there's 2 more pieces of fabric you need to cut. The last 2 pieces of fabric you need to cut are going to be for the part of the bag that the drawstring runs through, and you need 2 pieces of fabric, 3 inches by 17 inches. And if your fabric is directional, make sure that you have the pattern running along the long, like it runs long ways on the pattern piece. The first thing you need to do is you need to sew your bag outside and your bag lining pieces together, right sides facing. So I've already done that. Here is my bag lining piece. I have sewn the 2 side seams and the bottom seam, all with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then I've gone in and pressed the seams open, and I did that for both pieces. And honestly, it doesn't matter which is your bag and which is your bag lining, because it's reversible anyway. The next thing you need to do is you need to go in, and we're going to create our gusset at the bottom and pinch the corners. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. down here where you've cut the square out, you're just going to grab the two pieces and flatten them out. And you're going to arrange them so that the seams are on top of each other and it's straight and there's no like puckers or anything like that. And then you're just going to come in here and you're going to pin, and then we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. So it's harder to do when you're recording than when you're just sitting at your table. So anyway, you're going to pin that, and then you're going to stitch it with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then come back. After you've got those sewn, so we've got the bottom corner sewn on both of them, you're going to take one of the pieces and turn it right side out. It doesn't matter which one, since this is a reversible bag. You're going to turn it right side out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add the casing for the drawstring. So you cut two pieces of fabric that were 3 inches by 17 inches. So what I want you to do with those, and I've already done it, is I want you to come in and press a 1/2 inch in on each of the short sides, and then take that piece and press it in half so that you've got like a long strip with folded end corners. Next, take that strip, and with the raw edges, these are the raw edges, facing up, facing the raw edges of the top of the bag, you're just going to pin it along the outside, the right side of the bag. And it should match up to your side seams just like that. If it doesn't, go ahead and unfold it and repress it. And then you're going to come in here and you're going to do the exact same thing with the other strip on the other side of the bag, and then we're going to go ahead and baste it in place. Now you've got that basted in place. To baste just means to run a long stitch, usually a 4, 5, or 6 stitch length on your machine. It just holds something in place temporarily and it's easy to come out later. That's why you use a basting stitch there. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the other bag piece, which is still wrong side out, and you're going to put this piece inside this piece so that the right sides of the bag, the right sides of the fabric are facing. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come in here and you're going to use a pin, and you're going to pin the bag at the two side seams. Make sure I try and keep that in the camera so you guys can see what it is I'm doing. Okay, you're just going to keep pinning all the way around the top. And then what you're going to do on one of the sides of the bag is you are going to place a couple of pins about, doesn't have to be perfect, about yay far apart. And what you're going to do is you're going to take this to your sewing machine with a 1/2 inch seam allowance again, and you're going to start sewing at one pin, sew all the way around until you get to the other pin. You're going to make sure you backstitch each time. And what that's going to do is going to leave you a hole in the bag so we can go ahead and turn it right side out in the next step. Now that we have that stitched, you're going to come in through this opening that you left, and you are just going to pull the bag right side out. So pull the lining out. So you've got that, you flip that to the inside. Everything is right side out, and I'm going to show you how to close up that hole. Okay, what I've done is I've gone ahead and I took the bag over to my ironing board and ironed it so that this seam is nice and crisp right there. Here is the hole that we left. So to fix that, all you're going to do is you're going to top stitch around the entire top of the bag, and you're just going to stitch right along the edge of that fabric. And as you stitch, it will catch that hole and close it up for you. And then the last thing you need to do is just add the drawstrings. After you've got that top stitched, you're going to go ahead and add your drawstring. The easiest way I think to measure the string for the drawstring is just to lay your bag out and then fold the ribbon in half. I've already cut mine, but you just want your string to be, you know, a couple inches longer than your bag on both sides. You can always cut it shorter. If it's too long, it might get tangled. And so you're going to have two pieces going into the bag. So just to kind of help you visualize how this goes, this is the fold here, this is the fold here. So you're gonna feed this piece through so that the fold is there and the raw ends of the ribbon are here. And you're gonna feed this piece through so that the fold is here and the raw ends are here. And to do that, you just get yourself a nice big safety pin, pin it, and then just come on in here and just start feeding it through. So I've got my drawstring fed through the bag on one, see it just kind of goes through that side and up through here and up through here and to the end, coming out one side. You can leave it like this if you want, it will work. I just think it's a little easier to have the ribbon going both directions. Before you do anything else, go ahead and knot this off. Just leave yourself a few inches from the bag, because otherwise if you don't knot this off, when you pull this other piece of ribbon through, you run the risk of pulling the one out you just put in. So then you're going to feed the other ribbon through so that the fold is on the side with the tie, and then just string it through the other side. And then all you gotta do after that is just clip your strings and finish it up. So I'll just show you this other side. So I've got it fed through here and pull my safety pin out. My strings are about the same length from the knot, and then you do want to make sure you get both of them pulled through at the same time. So we're just going to do this. It's a lot harder to tie a knot when you're filming yourself than it is just normally. Okay, so they're just going to pull on that. You've got your knot, and then you're just going to take your scissors and finish that off and cut that off. And then the last thing I would probably do is go ahead and hit the ends of the ribbon with a little bit of fray check. That'll keep it from fraying, and then just pull up on your strings. First couple times you use your bag, it'll be a little stiff, but as you use it more, it will start to loosen up.